So let's start with our motivation. And again, come back to a heart that is, yeah. Let's come back to a heart that is open and non-judgmental towards other living beings. And a heart that is more concerned with the welfare of others than with our own welfare. And when we have that thought, then we don't fear other living beings. And think for a moment of what that would be like to not have any fear towards others and to never feel threatened by them, no matter what they did, because your focus is more on their welfare than on your own. And contemplate why that may be so. Yeah. Why do they say that the Buddhas care more about others than themselves and they have all happiness? We care more about ourselves than others and we have suffering. So why is that? How does that work? So even though it's difficult to overcome our self-centered thought, at least let us see the reasons and the benefits for doing so. And to have that aspiration and to imagine what it would feel like to be free of that self-centeredness and to really be able to look at all other living beings with a heart of kindness. So with that kind of motivation, then let's listen to the teachings and let's live our life with an attitude of kindness and compassion. Okay, so before we get into the Gomchen Lamrim, I want to talk a little bit more about the school shootings and what's happened. So, as we know, there's the people from the Sandy Hook school shooting, I think 5-6 years ago now, when 20 little kids were mowed down. So they've had this very nice, wonderful organization and this habit of doing vigils. And so what we'll do as part of the retreat for the next 3 days, we'll consider our practice as a vigil for especially dedicated to the victims of gun violence. So not only the ones from the school shooting, but all the other people that are not victims of mass shootings, but that get killed every day in America, that don't even make the newspapers because it's so common now. So let's dedicate for all of them, and by reciting at the last session, or at least at some session during the day, the prayer to be reborn in Sukhavati that Je Tsongkhapa wrote. Okay. Then it's been very interesting to hear some of the comments of the students at that school because they're speaking up. And, these kids are going to be the next generation of voters. And they're pretty fed up with what's going on and why, they have to go to school being afraid of being shot, especially by their classmates. And one of the girls was saying that she had previously supported guns and Second Amendment rights. And she wanted to learn to hunt. But then after, I guess it was Wednesday, huh? Was Wednesday the shooting or Tuesday? Anyway, whichever day it was, after, I think it was Wednesday, then after that, her whole thought changed. Because before she wanted to become a junior NRA member, and after she had that experience of bullets whizzing by her, that aspiration went blank. There was another young man who said, "We're the children and you're the adults, and you need to figure this out, how to keep us safe." You know? And I thought, I'm really glad these kids are saying something, because in a few years they will vote and they will let people know how they feel. There's also a movement, I don't do Twitter, but with a hashtag called Vote Them Out. Really saying to all the people running for Congress and Senate this autumn, that unless you do something, we're voting you out, which I think is wonderful, because these guys seem to care more about their position than about the citizens of the country they're supposed to represent. Then I got so amidst all this kind of craziness, you see people really stepping up to the plate and speaking out, which is so encouraging. And I really hope these kids speak out more, because especially, they're in high school, they can be articulate, they experience this. Let them have a voice and let the public hear it. Then we also got this very nice email from Sage, who has often come to our winter retreat. And she said, "I belong to a group called Grandmothers Against Gun Violence." Isn't that a great name for a group? Yeah? Grandmothers Against Gun Violence. Because we usually think, grandmothers, like they're hard of hearing and they're hard of seeing, and, all they do is, ask you if you've had lunch and encourage you to eat more. Okay, at least that was, my experience. But here's this group of grandmothers that are, working against gun violence. As a group, Sage says, we lobby for gun legislation in Washington state. On February 6th, we went down to Olympia, that's our state capital, to deliver 2,000 letters from 36 district constituents to lobby for legislation currently before the state. 2 bills have passed the Senate and are now in House committees. Yeah, and I'm not sure if one of those bills is, but in our state, the bill to abolish the death penalty made it out of committee. Yeah, so that's really good. So legislators over and over again stress the need to hear from their constituents. As you can imagine, Seattle is very supportive of legislation for reasonable gun safety, but Eastern Washington, our area, and rural areas, our area, not so much. Okay. If you know anyone who might be interested in joining GMAGV, Grandmothers Against Gun Violence, okay, they can either contact me or go online to find out more. We have 800 members so far, and this is my attempt at outreach to strengthen our voice.
So that person need to be a grandmother?
I don't think you need to be a grandmother. Yeah, just be in the age category. Oh, so are you volunteering? Grandma Semke. Granny 7K. Okay. Granny Chuni, Granny Tarfa, Granny Tanya. She said she emailed you already. So
I know I haven't had any email.
good.
But I am a granny.
Yeah. Do you have kids?
My husband has a grandson.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that's, some good news in the face of a tragedy of people really getting active and doing something. Okay. So let's go back to Gomchen Lamrim. We're talking about Serenity. Yeah. And so we're going through, I'm reading this section on Serenity so you can have the transmission. And it's basically a review of what we've covered before. But hopefully it'll help you to remember what we've covered before and may clear up some questions you may have had. Okay, so we're on the heading that says rejecting flawed methods. Okay. So some people believe that according to the above instruction on mindfulness, although there is no laxity, there is a great risk of restlessness. And I have seen them assert good meditation arises from good relaxation, which is a case of mistaking the presence of laxity for meditation. Okay? So, so this is the people who cannot differentiate between lethargy and laxity, and they think that because there's no lethargy, the very obvious dullness and drowsiness, that there's also no laxity. Yeah, and they're very concerned with there being restlessness and scattering. In other words, the mind wanting to go to objects of attachment because the mind is too tight. And so they advocate good meditation arises from good relaxation. Okay, so just relax. Don't make any effort. It'll all come together. Okay. So clearly he is not advocating that position. Yeah. And, the question came up last week that we hear something from very reliable teachers saying, effortless meditation, let the mind rest in the natural state. And that sounds like you don't make any effort. But it's after you've made a lot of effort to overcome the laxity and the restlessness and all the other interferences that then it becomes natural and effortless. Okay? Because if it were just a question of closing our eyes and then going into samadhi, again, why are there all these teachings we listen to if that's all you need to do? Okay. Some think that since the clarity aspect is present, there is no fault. But in this case, the mistake lies in not distinguishing lethargy from laxity. So they think that because you have some clarity, then you don't have lethargy, and they can't discriminate laxity as something different from lethargy. So laxity can actually be present even though you have stability and clarity. Is that the intensity of the clarity is lacking. Therefore, the wise and the interested should guard like their life the explanation of the right degree of looseness and tightness. At the point where you think, if I go a little higher, restlessness will arise. Yeah, you loosen your grip on the object a little bit. Okay, so if you're meditating and you feel like if I got just a little bit tighter, then, because when your mind's too tight, then restlessness comes. So if you feel like that, then you relax the tightness. Okay? At the point where you think, if I leave it like this, laxity will arise. Okay, so if you leave the level of how you're holding the object like this, that laxity is going to come. That's because your grasp of the object is a little bit too loose. So at that point, you heighten it or increase it a bit. You will know how to place your mind by observing it intelligently. So this is the thing with these kind of instructions is the instructions are words, and it's like this for all the meditations. We hear the words, but hearing the words doesn't mean that we can do it. Yeah, we have to practice it. And it's only by the practice and by trial and error and seeing what it's like ourselves that we actually understand. Yeah. It's kind of like if somebody tells you, eat enough to be healthy, but don't eat so much that, you gain weight or you get unhealthy. I mean, yeah, that sounds really good, but do you know what's right for your body? By just hearing those words? No, you have to, try it out and see. And, at what point do you fall sick? Or what point do you get weak? At what point do you gain weight? And so on. Okay, so this all requires practice. Okay, then explaining the duration of the sessions, while you still have the fault of weak introspective awareness, which fails to quickly identify forgetfulness that tends to distraction. As forgetfulness, by the way, the word is non-mindfulness. Okay? So forgetfulness is the opposite of mindfulness. It's not just the lack of mindfulness, it's the exact opposite where you're actually forgetting. Okay? So when your introspective awareness is weak and it doesn't quickly identify the forgetfulness that tends to distraction, and it doesn't easily identify laxity and restlessness. The instruction is to meditate in numerous short meditation sessions. Okay, once you have overcome both faults, laxity and restlessness, prolong the sessions slightly. Okay. Now here he says calculating an hour as one meditation session or as half a session. Remain as long as you are capable, adapting the duration to your personal mental capacity. Without forcing yourself, meditate while rejecting the obstacles. So I've heard instructions that at the beginning, it's very good. Keep your sessions really short, like 5 or 10 minutes, because if you push and try and meditate longer and your concentration isn't so good, then you get really frustrated. And when you're frustrated, you don't want to sit down and meditate again. Okay? So that's why they say keep it short and sweet so that when you arise, you're not going, oh, thank God that's over already, But it's just, okay, that was nice, time to take a break. And then next time when it's time to start your next session, your mind wants to meditate. Yeah. Whereas if you push yourself and it's too long, then you just get aggravated and frustrated and then that sets up a block for you. Okay. Now, that does not mean, it doesn't mean that when you're sitting in the hall and you can't concentrate, you get up and leave the hall. Okay? Because pretty soon, after about 15 minutes, the hall would be empty. Okay? So, yeah, this advice is not just saying, get up and leave the hall when you can't concentrate. Rather, it's suggesting here you're doing particularly a retreat to develop serenity. So that's not what you're doing this time with Amitabha. There's a lot in the Amitabha sadhana to keep your mind busy thinking about different things. Okay, so But here, if you're doing a retreat just on serenity, 5 or 10 minutes, then open your eyes, look around, again, sit another 5 or 10 minutes, then take a break. Don't get up and walk around. But then, do that for, let's say, an hour at the most at the beginning. And then as you're able to concentrate more, then you can lengthen your sessions. And instead of 5 to 10, maybe it's 7 to 15. Yeah. And then you meditate, a whole, you do that for an hour and a quarter, something like that. Okay. Okay. So what to do once you're focused on the object. Okay. And so here, again, we're going to talk about what to do when laxity and restlessness occur, because those are the two main hindrances after you get your mind on the object. Okay, so laziness is the first big hindrance because you can't get to the cushion. Then forgetting the object, the lack of mindfulness, is the next big hindrance because you can't keep your mind on the object for very long. But once you've overcome those two, then the next pair of hindrances are laxity and restlessness. Okay, so laxity, restlessness being the lack of stability, so your mind's going off the object to an object of attachment. Laxity being more subtle than lethargy. Lethargy is you're drowsy and falling asleep. Laxity is there's clarity, but not intensity. So you're kind of spaced out. Yeah. Okay. So first, the first outline says establishing the definition of laxity and restlessness. So by nature, restlessness derives from attachment. Its object is pleasant and attractive. That's why it's so easy to daydream, and why it's so hard to take our mind away from our daydreams, because, they're pleasant. You can imagine, everything that you feel inadequate about, you imagine having in your daydreams. Okay? So its object is pleasant and attractive. The aspect of its mode of apprehension, which means how it's holding the object, is unpeaceful and scattered. So you're not on the object. You're not peaceful having the mind on the object. Your mind's scattered, It's like roaming the universe. It engages, we're talking about restlessness, it engages in its object with the aspect of craving, our old friend craving. Its particular function and role is to interfere with the mind remaining fixed on the object. So it really interferes with stability in our concentration. As laxity and restlessness is non-virtuous. It's one of the 20 auxiliary afflictions. Now, talking about laxity, which is either virtuous or ethically neutral. So you see, this is what is difficult about laxity is, you're not unhappy when it's there. It's not negative. So you're not like, it's either virtuous or because you're focused on a virtuous object, or it's ethically neutral. It does not tightly apprehend the object, although there is limpidity, so some calmness and clarity. The clarity lacks intensity. Lethargy is either a non-virtuous or an ethically neutral obstruction. So here's the difference between, laxity is virtuous or ethically neutral. Lethargy is non-virtuous or ethically neutral. And lethargy is a cause of laxity and derives from ignorance. It is physical and mental heaviness and unserviceability. Okay? So lethargy is when you're sitting there Yeah? You ever had that experience? Yeah? Okay. What's interesting is we usually think, oh, that lethargy means, if I'm falling asleep in teachings, it means I haven't slept enough. Yeah, that's why it's happening, because I don't have enough sleep. So then we use that as a reason, oh, now I have to sleep more. Okay. Once in a while, it's because we haven't had enough sleep. But actually, it's because we sleep too much. Lethargy arises. So when you sleep too much, the mind is just in the habit of being heavy and the body dull, and then that carries into your meditation. So it's sometimes the opposite of what we think. I know you're disappointed. Yeah. It'd be much nicer to say, oh, it's because I don't sleep enough, so I have to go to bed early and sleep late. Okay, now how to produce introspective awareness that perceives laxity and restlessness when you're meditating, okay? Because before we can do anything about them, we have to notice them. This is what we talked about at lunchtime today. When you see that laxity or restlessness are about to arise, if you do not apply strong introspective awareness, just knowing what laxity and restlessness are will be useless. Okay? Thus, there are two means to sustain introspective awareness. As explained before, one is to rely on mindfulness continually. The other is, from within that state, to watch alertly from a corner of your mind and check whether the mind has scattered from its object to another object. These are the two instructions for applying introspective awareness. For just as strong mindfulness is a cause of introspective awareness, so is checking repeatedly from the corner of your mind a cause for introspective awareness. Okay, so mindfulness and introspective awareness are often spoken of together. The stronger we make our mindfulness, the stronger our introspective awareness will be. So if you want to, increase your introspective awareness, which is a mental factor that monitors what's going on in your mind, then if you want to increase it, one way is to try to increase your mindfulness. How do you increase your mindfulness? You really put your mind on the object and try and keep it there. Okay. Another way to increase your introspective awareness is from this one little corner of your mind. There's like a little spy that kind of surveys the situation. And am I still focused on the object? Is there laxity? Is there restlessness? What's going on in my mind? Okay, so that's a second way to increase your introspective awareness. And they often say that that's exactly what introspective awareness does in the context of developing serenity, is that it acts as a little spy, that monitors your mind. When it acts as a little spy, if you make it too strong, then it's going to interfere with your concentration, because you're always going to be going, am I focusing? Am I, where's my mind? Where's my mindfulness? And that's going to interrupt your concentration. Okay? But not having enough of that introspective awareness, then laxity or restlessness could have arisen and we don't even notice it. We're out to lunch. Yeah. And so those meditation sessions where you're kind of surprised at the end of the session when you hear the bell, because it's like, oh, where was my mind that entire session? Yeah, that's due to not having very good introspective awareness. Okay. So that's talking about those two hindrances. Then the next hindrance, after we've, we can identify and laxity and restlessness and build up our introspective awareness, then the next hindrance is non-application of the antidote. Okay, so that's the next outline here. And it also has the sub-outline establishing the definition of laxity and restlessness, which is the same outline as above. So that's why I think this whole thing needs a lot of checking. Okay. Just as a piece of metal moves by the power of a magnet, what moves the mind towards virtue, non-virtue, and the ethically neutral is the mental factor of intention. Okay. In this context, direct application of intention is the remedy to non-application when laxity and restlessness occur. So it's the intention to apply the antidote. Okay? Since laxity arises when the mind is turned too far inward and has loosened its apprehension of the object of meditation, it is by meditating on joy, not sadness, that you overcome it. Hence, by analyzing uplifting objects, deities, signs of light, with joy heightened in your mind. Yeah, that heightens your mind. Okay? So you raise and increase your apprehension of the object. Go walking, perform recitations, and meditate on the 6 topics of recollection. Wash your face with water, look at the planets and the stars, contemplate the benefits of bodhicitta and of freedom and fortune of your precious human life. Stop the causes of laxity and meditate on whatever favors limpidity. Okay, limpidity meaning tranquility here. Okay, so what this is saying is laxity in particular, it arises when the mind, the mind is holding the object too loosely, the mind is turned too far inward. Okay, so when the mind is like that, that's not the time to meditate on death and the disadvantages of attachment. Because your mind's already low energy. If you meditate on something like death, it brings the energy of your mind lower, or the disadvantages of cyclic existence, it brings the mind lower. So what you want is you need to heighten the energy of the mind so that you can hold the object a little bit tighter. So what do? You analyze uplifting objects, you visualize deities and light. You think of, like if you're meditating on the Buddha, incredible light coming into you. Maybe you stop and you do the breathing meditation, imagining exhaling dark smoke, which vanishes, and inhaling light that then fills your whole body. You contemplate precious human life. You contemplate refuge. You contemplate Buddha nature. Okay, you contemplate something that uplifts your mind. Okay, so this is important because sometimes we think, I'm falling asleep, I should meditate on death. Yeah, that would wake me up. Yeah. Actually, it says here, the opposite. It has to be something that delights the mind and uplifts the mental energy, because the mind's too drawn inward too far. Okay. Also, take a walk. So don't be a couch potato. Go out and walk. There is plenty of space here to walk. Okay. Do recitations. Yeah, so do some chanting, do your sadhanas out loud, do prostrations, wash your face with water, look into the sky, especially, either the day or the night when the sky is clear and just look up at the stars or the blue sky, or that's one of the reasons I chose this land. I knew when I was looking for land, it had to be somewhere where you had a view, because having a view is very important if you want to meditate, because it's easy for the mind to be too far inward. So that's why it's important that you're out in nature. You can look long distances. Yeah. You don't want to, if you're doing retreat, go to a place that's at the bottom of a valley. Yeah. That's not the place, okay? Contemplate the benefits of bodhicitta. Okay, so this is what we do to oppose laxity. Restlessness, which arises out of attachment, runs after objects. In this case, meditating on impermanence, renunciation, disillusionment, and so forth will automatically counteract restlessness. Yeah. So restlessness, the mind is restless. There's too much energy. It's like, I want to think about something that's very attractive. Yeah. And our mind is like racing around, planning things. Yeah. You know how the planning, you will do a lot of planning in this retreat. You will think about not only what you're going to do the day after a retreat, but, like I said today, you will plan and you will think about all the other retreats you want to go on. You will, look online when you think nobody is watching, and surf and look at other websites when they're having different retreats. Mark down the dates. In your meditation session, you will calculate, I can go to this retreat from then until then, and then I take a plane from there until there and go to this retreat, and then I'll go hear these teachings, and, these dates are really good. They don't overlap. And like, how much money does each place charge, and do I have enough money? And, we will now dedicate the merit. And then you think, but I was distracted by wanting to create virtue. Yeah. So this wasn't a bad meditation session. It's showing how I really love the Dharma. Okay? Right? Yeah. So in that case, you have to meditate on permanence, death, disadvantages of cyclic existence, disillusionment with samsaric objects, all those kinds of things. Okay? Yeah. Then when mental scattering predominates, the instruction is to bring the mind back immediately. So scattering is just your mind's like crazy, okay? All over the place. When restless, it's kind of like restlessness, basically. When restlessness prevails, it is also appropriate to draw the mind inward at once. Okay? So just kind of, bring your energy inward, and, sometimes it's good at that time, focus down at your belly, or, become more aware of your body, something that brings the mind back and calms it down. Okay, then identifying the causes based on which laxity and restlessness arise. So what makes them arise? Not guarding the senses. Okay, so this is why in our Vinaya training, we are told to keep our eyes down. Yeah, in general. Yeah, of course you have to look where you're going, and you have to smile at other people, and not step on the cats, and especially when the snow is this deep, figure out where you're trying to go. Yeah. Yeah. But when we don't guard the senses and we just let our senses go everywhere, it's like you see some people. Yeah. It's very interesting. You can see it when we're eating lunch. Some people hear a noise, immediately they look back to see what's going on. Okay? Some people, just while they're eating, they're not even aware of it, but their eyes are going like this. I didn't get any of that. That's because you took too much. Okay. So the mind, we can't keep our eyes steady, our ears, always trying to eavesdrop on other people's conversations because they must be talking about me. What else would they talk about? Always sniffing. What can we smell? Tasting something. Yeah. Our tactile taste, touch, So just the senses are uncontrolled, and we're just controlled by our senses. It's like it's too cold and it's too hot, and it's very interesting. When it's been cold in the dining room lately. Okay, weren't they supposed to fix that?
Today they fixed the lower level, and that will help the whole building.
Today.
Yeah.
Today?
This afternoon.
I thought they put that other alternative in last week.
Yeah, but one wire was detached, and they fixed that today.
Okay.
Now the whole backup system is working.
Okay, until tomorrow. Okay.
Most likely.
Yes, most likely. Yeah. So go there tonight so you can remember how it feels to be warm in the dining room. But I notice, because I have to take my jacket off when I do the BBCs, it's cold. As soon as I start speaking, I don't even notice the cold. Don't even notice it. Yeah. As soon as I stop speaking, then I realize, oh, gee, I'm cold. Yeah. It's quite interesting. Yeah, it's curious because I will notice more when I'm hot when I'm teaching. That's much more disturbing. Yeah. Cold, I'll forget about hot, maybe because there's water dripping. Okay. But, it's a very good practice. Every time you hear a sound, don't look and see what's going on, especially when you're in the meditation hall. If it sounds like somebody's throwing up or they, or they fainted or something like that, please look, okay? But otherwise, try and keep your senses, controlled. It will make your meditation much easier, because the habit of, always checking things out, it just makes the mind restless by nature. And that is going to be interesting, especially with the younger generation, where, with the media, in my generation, the media stayed on an object a little bit longer. Yeah, a lot longer. And now it changes so quickly. Yeah, I have trouble sometimes following, and then don't you nod, because you're the one who goes boom, 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 boom.
Very slow. Look at when it's on now, it's even faster.
Yeah, she's the one. She just goes like this. You're trying to read something, and she goes like this. Wait, excuse me. I'm still up on that page. Well, I'm looking for the next outline. Okay, so this kind of thing, it makes it very difficult for us to concentrate. Especially, I think, too much contact with the media. You know, the music changing all the time, the visuals changing all the time. Then when they don't change, like when you're meditating, then you make them change. Yeah. And the mind gets restless. Yeah. Okay. So it's going to be interesting the next generation, you know, to see if people are how they're going to do meditating. Okay, so not guarding the senses, that's one cause. Not eating with measure. So you eat too much. What happens when you eat too much? That's right. Okay, sleeping is a cause, you know. Lacking effort. Not applying introspective awareness. So those are the causes common to laxity and restlessness. The specific causes of laxity are excessive sleep. There's a few people here who need to hear this. The specific causes of laxity are excessive sleep. Okay. Overdoing the practice of meditative serenity, so making your sessions too long. Okay. So then your mind just gets exhausted. The specific causes of restlessness are insufficient disenchantment. So we haven't meditated enough on the disadvantages of samsara. You know, so we still think samsara is kind of an okay place. And as long as we think samsara is okay, then our mind is going to run off and daydream about samsaric objects. Okay. 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 So the specific causes of laxity are excessive sleep, overdoing the practice of meditative serenity, blacking out, remaining in a state of dullness. Okay, so you're kind of dull and you don't do anything about it, and not delighting in maintaining the object of meditation, so you don't really care. Yeah. The specific causes of restlessness, okay, are insufficient disenchantment, unfamiliarity with effort, and excessively, I'm sorry, I was reading that wrong. Let me read that whole paragraph over. Not guarding the senses, not eating with measure, sleeping, lacking effort, and not applying introspective awareness are the causes common to both laxity and restlessness. The specific causes of laxity, excessive sleep, overdoing the practice of meditative serenity, remaining in a state of dullness, and not delighting in maintaining the object of meditation. The specific causes of restlessness are insufficient disenchantment, unfamiliarity with effort, an excessively tight mode of apprehension, so you're squeezing yourself, and being distracted by your homeland and loved ones. Okay? So you're thinking about your homeland, about the people you care about everything that you want to be doing as soon as this retreat is over. Okay, when laxity and restlessness are about to rise, you must stop them. If you neglect to do so and play them down because of their subtlety, like saying, oh, it's no big deal, it's only a little bit, it won't last so long, your concentration will be faulty. When mental scattering and restlessness arise, seek stability within. When stable, if you suspect laxity, generate intense clarity. So that summarizes that whole thing. Okay? Do not content yourself with simple limpidity. It is difficult to get these in balance quickly. However, through habit and practice, it becomes easier. Okay, then what to do when laxity and restlessness are absent? Okay. So something to look forward to okay? Once you feel confident that for the duration of a session, laxity and restlessness will not occur, meditate with non-application and less exertion without letting the intensity of your apprehension decline. Okay, so once you're confident, that for the rest of your session, laxity and restlessness aren't going to arise. So by this time, you're probably around the 8th stage of sustained attention. Yeah. This is not for us. Okay. So, or at least not for me. Without letting the intensity of your apprehension decline. Okay. But period. So here's the summary. At the preliminary stage, the main fault is laziness. Okay. When striving to concentrate, it is forgetting the instruction. When in meditative equipoise, I don't think you're actually in meditative equipoise here, but you have a little bit of concentration. Then the faults are laxity and restlessness. When laxity and restlessness occur, then what's your problem? Non-application. You don't do anything about them. And when you're free of them, then the problem is over-application. You keep applying the antidote when you don't need to. Okay? So these are the 5 faults. The 4, faith, aspiration, these are the 4 antidotes. Faith, aspiration, effort, and pliancy counteract laziness. The 4, mindfulness, introspective awareness, application, and equanimity counteract forgetfulness, laxity and restlessness, non-application, and application. Okay? Thus, the 8 applications, the 8 antidotes reject the 5 faults. Be aware that these are needed in highest yoga tantra as well. Okay, so then on that basis, the process of producing the 9 stages of sustained attention. Okay, so there's 9 stages. Here they're basically just listed. We went through them in more depth before. So placing the mind, 2, continual placement, 3, repeated placement. This is giving you the idea of what you need to do. 4, close placement. 5, taming. 6, pacifying. 7, thoroughly pacifying. 8, making single-pointed. 9, placement in equipoise. So these are the 9 stages of sustained attention to be cultivated. So how the next outline, how they're attained by means of the 6 powers. So the following is how to attain those 9 stages of sustained attention by means of the 6 powers. So respectively, the first 2 powers, are for the first 2 mental states. What are the first 2 powers? Learning or hearing and reflection. Okay? So for the first 2 stages, which are placing the mind in continual placement, where you're just getting used to the object and, keep on having to put your mind back on it, then the powers that you need are especially learning, so knowing the instructions, and then reflecting on them and reflecting on the object. Okay? Each of the 3 middle ones successively produces 2. The last generates the 9th balance placement. Okay, so learning and reflection are active on the first, are the powers by which we achieve the first 2 close first two stages, placing the mind in continual placement. Okay. Mindfulness is the one that is going to be more active for attaining the third and fourth stages, which are repeated placement and close placement. Introspective awareness is the one that is going to be used for the fifth and sixth, so taming and pacifying. Effort is going to help us attain the seventh and eighth, thoroughly pacifying and making single-pointed. And then complete familiarity is the power that helps us with the ninth, placement in equipoise. So just by looking at which of the powers are necessary at each stage, it also lets us know what hindrance is more effective, or more, not effective, more prominent at that stage. Okay? So why do we need learning and reflection? Because we forget the object. Okay? Yeah. Why do we need mindfulness?
To remember the instruction.
Yeah, to remember the instruction and to develop stability. Okay, to calm the distraction. Introspective awareness on the fifth and sixth is because that's where laxity and restlessness become really a problem. Okay, effort on the seventh and eighth is when non-application, you need effort to overcome your non-application, and then complete familiarity is, what brings that equanimity with the ninth one. Okay? Then there's 4 types of attention, or 4 types of focus. So one is tight focus. So that's prominent on the first and second stages. You have tight focus doesn't mean you get tight like that. It means you hold firmly to the object, okay? Because you don't have much stability on the first and second stages, so you need to hold the object firmly. That's the tight focus. Intermittent focus is on the third to the seventh stage, because in those stages, you have some concentration, but it's only intermittent. You're on the object, you're off the object. You have stability, you don't. You have clarity, you don't. Okay? So it's intermittent focus. And then uninterrupted focus is on the eighth, because you can pretty well stay on the object after you exert a little bit of effort at the beginning of your session. And then spontaneous focus is on the ninth stage, because then you're very familiar with the object and it just flows like that. Okay, so adding focus or attention to each, these are the 4 attentions, or the 4 focuses. The first attention or focus corresponds to the first 2 mental states. The second attention to the next, or the second focus to the next 5. The third focus to the 8th, and the fourth focus to the 9th. This is how the 4 focuses are secured for the 9 stages of sustained attention. Okay, then the measure of having achieved serenity by meditating on it. Okay, there's a bunch of outlines under that. We're just going to go directly to the big outlines. So explaining the attainment or non-attainment of serenity. So what's the measure of attaining serenity or not? Although there is no laxity or restlessness in the 8th mental state, or the 8th state of sustained attention, since it is necessary to rely upon mindfulness and introspective awareness uninterruptedly, it is called direct application or exertion. Yeah, so there's some effort in those two, in that stage. Yeah. In the 9th stage, this is not necessary, so it is said to be exertion-free. Nevertheless, as pliancy has not yet been attained, you have some pliancy, but it's not the full pliancy. So at that point, it is still part of the desire realm level and is not serenity. Okay, so even the 9th stage is not serenity, and it's a desire realm mind. After, it's going to go in here, where we go after we attain the 9th stage, what has to come, and in order to actualize actual serenity. Serenity is also called the level of access concentration, and in the Mahayana scriptures, it talks about 7 preparations or 7 mental contemplations that we go through before each of the dhyanas. And access concentration is the first of these 7 for the first dhyana. Okay, and it's a form realm mind, so it's no longer a desire realm mind. Okay, so remember that we have the realms and then we have the spheres of consciousness. So somebody can be a human being, they're in the human realm, but when they attain access concentration, then their sphere of consciousness becomes form realm, because they are then meditating with a mind that is like somebody who was born in the form realm. Okay? So you can be a human being, your realm can be human, but your sphere of consciousness can be in one of the 4 dhyanas or one of the 4 formless realms also. The Buddha's sphere of consciousness? The Buddha's is beyond all of those, because all of those spheres of consciousness are samsaric. Yeah, so the Buddha's is beyond that, and also because the Buddha, remember, can perceive the 2 truths simultaneously. But the Buddha has mastered all those different levels. Yeah, so before becoming a Buddha, mastered in all of those and can go up and down and in and out of these different states very quickly. Okay, so then the outline, having attained complete pliancy, explaining how serenity is achieved. So the inability to direct the mind and body towards virtue as you wish is called mental and physical dysfunction or unserviceability. Okay? Yeah, you got it? Do you have this? Yeah. Yeah, the body doesn't cooperate, it's stiff, it falls asleep. The mind doesn't cooperate, it's running all over the universe, it's dull, whatever is going on. Okay, once freed of this, the body and mind, like cotton fluff, are completely serviceable for virtue. It is said that once serviceability is complete through familiarization, concentration becomes pliant and is one-pointed meditative serenity. Okay, so this is you go through a stage of developing mental pliancy and physical pliancy, and then the bliss of physical pliancy and the bliss of mental pliancy. And at the end of all of that, that's serenity. So it says, according to the 5 stages portending pliancy, as soon as the top of the meditator's head feels heavy and so forth, mental and physical pliancy arise in succession. Yeah, so they say that's kind of a sign that you're going to have your mental and physical pliancy are coming, that it feels like there's a little bit of heaviness on top of your head. Okay, not a lot like we sometimes feel. So the first is posited as the first, meaning mental pliancy, is posited as a perception, and the second, physical pliancy, as a tangible object. So physical pliancy, saying it's a tangible object, is really emphasizing that there's some change in your body. You know, it has to do with the winds in your body, and so you feel different. When physical pliancy first occurs, although there is physical and mental bliss and well-being, still the easily identifiable signs of complete pliancy have yet to be attained. Okay. Subsequently, when the course, so you get after mental and physical pliancy, then you get the bliss of physical and mental pliancy. Okay, so those are 4 of those signs. Although there's physical, mental bliss and well-being, still the easily identified sign of complete pliancy has yet to be attained. Subsequently, when the coarse bliss and delight that could destabilize the mind subside, an immovable concentration, as subtle as a shadow, along with the concordant pliancy are achieved, serenity and equipoise, in other words, access concentration, which is a form-level mind, are attained. Okay? So when the coarse bliss and delight that you have with physical and mental pliancy, when those subside a little bit, then the mind is steadier, and you get a special pliancy, which is the 5th kind of sign. And that special pliancy indicates the attainment of serenity, which is access concentration, which is a form realm mind, which is the first of the 7 preparations for gaining the first dhyana. Okay. So then the actual signs of having attained access concentration. Okay, so here are the actual signs, how to know when you got it, okay? But what's interesting about that previous one, the special pliancy, is there has to be a diminishment in the bliss, because the bliss can be a little bit, you can be a little bit too up. Yeah, and it's not good for your meditation. This happens actually when you're going through the dhyanas too, that you overcome rapture, you overcome bliss, because they're too disruptive for for going deeper into states of concentration. Okay, we would just like a little bit of them, huh? You know. Okay, so here's the signs of having attained access concentration. Possession of the ability to purify the afflictions. So this means that you're able to suppress the afflictions temporarily. When in equipoise, the 2 kinds of pliancy arise more quickly, so physical and mental pliancy arise very quickly. The 5 hindrances, what are they? Sensual desire, ill will,
sleep, sloth, and
restlessness. No, there's another one that's listed before that. Yeah, it's lethargy and dullness, I think, or lethargy and laxity. I forget how I translated it. Huh? Yeah, doubts at the end. Then the 4th one, restlessness and regret. And then the last one is doubt. Okay? So those 5 hindrances hardly ever occur. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? Having arisen, you haven't eliminated them completely. They're just temporarily suppressed because of the depth of the concentration. Having arisen from meditation, some pliancy is maintained. At the time, both serenity and pliancy mutually reinforce and favor one another. When in meditative equipoise, all coarse appearances cease, and you feel as though your mind has blended with the sky. Okay. When you arise from meditative equipoise, you feel as if you are suddenly rediscovering your body. Okay. Your afflictions are weak, even, outside of your meditation sessions. Mental scattering is unable to continue. The stability aspect is strong and the clarity aspect very great. The ability to combine sleep with concentrations and dreams is good. Yeah. So all those are signs of having attained access concentration. Okay. Then eliminating doubts. Okay. Then, as explained earlier, if this access concentration realizes the view of selflessness by means of a conceptual appearance, a kind of path to liberation at the level of an ordinary being is established. Okay, so it's an inferential realization of selflessness, done by access concentration. Okay, so it's a kind of path to liberation at the level of an ordinary being. You're not yet an Arya. You don't have the ability to overcome either the acquired or the innate afflictions yet. Okay, if that access is imbued with the bodhicitta, it becomes a great vehicle path. So then it's an actual path of the Mahayana, probably the path of accumulation. If neither bodhicitta nor realization of emptiness is present, then it is straightforward concentration that is common to both Buddhists and non-Buddhists. So remember, developing concentration is not a practice unique to Buddhism. For that reason, the two were distinguished. Blissful, clear, non-discursive concentration that is a meditation that either correctly realizes reality or does not. Okay, so you really start to distinguish what your object of meditation is. Okay, I think we'll stop here.
I heard a geshe say something that sounded a little cheeky at first, but he was talking about this, about attaining serenity, and he said, we see all these old lamas having such difficulty getting around. It's really clear that they have not attained this serenity.
Huh.
Which I was a little bit shocked. I was, But the more I've thought about it, the more I thought, well, now, is that really true? I mean, how much, when we talk about physical and mental pliancy, it sounds really great. And then they have human bodies.
Yeah.
So have you ever talked about that with like meditators for, a long time meditators who were, yeah.
And I've never talked with them about that and, kind of how well you move around, do that. Because, they may have arthritis or, other physical kinds of things. Serenity or the dhyanas would definitely eliminate the pain. Yeah, from those kinds of things. But because they have a hard time getting around, I don't know if that's necessarily proof that they don't have serenity. Yeah. Because, like I said, it could be actual physical things that are, yeah. But I would assume, with the serenity, those things wouldn't bother you so much. Yeah, you wouldn't be griping about, this hurts or whatever. Okay.